Hey everyone, today we're going to answer the question of how do you sit down while you carry in the appendix position. As someone that has carried pretty much exclusively in the appendix position, I'm going to teach you the very basic quick tip of how to actually sit down. Now, I'm not just talking about how to bend your hips and sit down on the ground. We're talking about how do you do this comfortably. Well, there's a few things to keep in mind. Obviously, a good belt and a good holster is very important. What goes into the belt is there's a variety of methods to make this work. You can choose a belt that's super stiff all the way around. You can choose a belt that's very stretchy all the way around. This one kind of does the best of both worlds. In the past, you've seen me talk about the Core Essentials belts. I really like those because they have a ratcheting system. It allows you to loosen it and tighten it depending on what kind of clothing you're wearing, how full you are. Just if you're going to be sitting for a long time, you can loosen it up. I've talked about the Groove Life belt, which is just very elastic all the way around everywhere, and that's very comfortable, but it might not be as secure, not as stiff. Maybe the gun moves around a little bit as the day goes on. But today we're using just a quick setup, T-Rex Arms holster and a Hunter Constantine belt. This belt is stretchy around the back, but in the front from hip to hip, it is reinforced with a steel or metal liner, which gives it the rigidity where the gun goes, but the stretch and flexibility in the back for comfort. Now, as someone that carries in the appendix position, you probably know, or maybe you don't know, or maybe someone that's just interested in the appendix carry position, your body type and how you set up your holster is crucial to your success. Now, when I say body type, I don't just mean height and weight. I mean a lot of things can go into this. This is why some people who carry that look same height and weight as you might find success in some setups that you have not, and vice versa. So when you have a gun that's not a subcompact, this is a Glock 19 with a Radian comp on it and a flashlight. This isn't the smallest gun in the world. Now, every gun's gonna be different, every person's gonna be different, every holster's gonna be different, so you are gonna have to experiment. You're likely gonna end up with a variety of holsters and a variety of belts over time, over the next few years when you're first in your concealed carry journey of finding a setup that works for you. But I'm gonna tell you some basic concepts that you wanna look for. Good belt, good holster, off the rip, that's gonna be huge. The more fit you are and the more better shape you are, that's gonna aid in concealability, but really the big thing we're talking about is how to make this work for you. And the biggest part of appendix carry that people can't get over is sitting down, bending down, tying their shoes, driving for long periods of time. And we're gonna answer that as quickly as I can. So this belt, this holster, what's crucial with it is it has some adjustability. Your ride height and cant as in angle, can be adjusted. So when you are carrying in the appendix position, especially, how high you wear your gun is crucial to being able to bend over or sit down comfortably. If you carry the gun with the gun too high up, it's going to prevent you from being able to bend at your upper back at all. If it's too high up, way up here, I'm going to run into a position where it's digging into my rib cage. If it's too low, this is the one that most people struggle with. If the gun is too low, I won't be able to bend at the hips. The way that I have this firearm positioned is just above basically where my hip bones bend here. So I can bend and touch my toes without it impinging on that joint. If the gun was lower, what's gonna happen is as you bend over, it crosses that seam. So if there's a seam right here, basically, you don't really wanna go below that, because what's gonna happen is if the gun is down here, but I'm bending from up here, now the gun is positioning itself in a way where I'm crunching it into my nether region. Now, how wide your hips are, how tall your hips are from the point of your hip bone at the top to where your hips actually insert is gonna change what's comfortable for you, what's not comfortable for you. But having the ability to either raise the gun up or lower the gun down is gonna improve your ability to bend over. Now, I am very fortunate in the sense that I can position this gun high enough that I can bend over and low enough that I can still get my full grip on it. As you lower the gun down in relation to your belt, you are going to have a harder and harder time getting your hands in here. If the gun was raised very far up, I might run into some concealability issues. I might run into some other issues with not being able to bend over as comfortably. But For me, the way that I have this gun and holster set up, I can sit and I can drive comfortably for long periods of time. I'm not a huge fan of taking the gun off, putting it in the center console on a long drive, but that is an option. However, at that point, it makes getting to your gun slower, so it's a compromise. How fast can you get to your gun? How readily accessible is it? How comfortable is it? Because if you're not carrying in a way that's comfortable for you and works with your lifestyle, you're probably gonna end up leaving that gun at home. So ultimately, what you wanna try to do is find a setup that is comfortable and provides you the peace of mind and comfort of having your firearm readily accessible as much as you can. So for me, I'm very fortunate in the sense that this works for me. You know, I have a good belt. This belt is not cheap. I think it's like $100, but there are cheaper belts out there, and there's a variety of other belts that might look a little bit more traditional. The Core Essential belts, great belt. You can ratchet it tighter or looser with a lot of adjustability, but this one has similar effects in the sense that it stretches. So with the 2 adjustment points, I can tighten this side here, get it, it's got a little like slide adjustment. I can adjust this to me so that on the looser setting, it's a little bit more comfortable. The gun might push out a little bit if I'm feeling really full, or if I have to pee, my bladder's real full, and that's fine. But generally, I want to try to put it on the tighter setting so that it's snug to my body, and that works for me. Really, you're gonna do a lot of experimentation, but the problem of sitting is not a problem if you set your gun up properly. There's a lot of great videos out there on the internet from the Filster company. They make holsters, they make pretty good holsters. I'm not a huge fan of the Enigma just because it doesn't really work with my lifestyle very well, and I've talked about that in the past, but a lot of people find great success with it, especially women or people that need to carry more deep concealment. When it comes to deep concealment, I think the Filster is actually really unbeaten when it comes to on-body deep concealment of a smaller firearm. But really, you're gonna have to do a little bit of trial and error, and that's unfortunate because that costs money, but the Core Essentials belt would be a great option, especially for the appendix position, or really any position, because it's stiff all the way around. So if you wanna carry up front, you can. If you wanna carry strong side, you can. I don't recommend smaller back carry in general, but there's a lot of various things that you can do. And then when it comes to wearing an overgarment, for me, with the way that this gun works for me and the way that I'm built, having this extra mag actually increases the ability for me to conceal it, because it provides one uniform bulge that is spread out over my whole body. If you wear really tight fit clothing, you're going to run into issues where if the clothing is really snug around your trunk, you're going to see some grip sticking out. When it comes to printing, I want to settle your mind with this little anecdote. I worked in a gun store for a few years, and during that time I carried outside the waistband strong side with a Glock 34 that had a red Cerakote. It was all done up, very flashy gun, just because it was more of a competition gun for me, and I just thought it looked cool at the time. I would be talking with customers very frequently, talking to them. Eventually the topic of modifying a Glock would come up. I would then point at my gun and reference all the crazy things you could do to it, and then I would have customers say, "Oh my God, I did not know you were carrying." People are a lot less aware than you might think. So obviously you're gonna have to kind of take a risk assessment of your life. If you're trying to deep concealment when it really, really matters, like at work or other sensitive places where it is legal to carry but may be frowned upon, that's gonna be something that you have to kind of weigh. Maybe consider a smaller firearm, maybe consider looser clothing, maybe consider off-body carry if that's a necessity, but off-body carry comes with a lot of negatives, like having to be physically attached to that bag that it's in and never letting it out of your sight or out of your grasp. So that's some problems that you have to deal with in addition to it just being slower to get to. But really, concealed carry in the appendix position is not a problem at all if you properly set up your gun, and I hope that this demonstrated that for you today. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.